He scored! He's around the outside! And he scored! He scored! And they win! Holy mother meatballs!
Welcome back to a new episode of the A-Game. I'm Cody Bear.
I'm Lucas Warren.
And I'm Ryan Hendricks.
Okay, guys, Appalachian State football took home the victory this past week against Gardner-Webb University. How do you guys think our team played? Lucas, I'll start with you.
Yeah, obviously Ryan Berger is injured. He's out for 3 to 4 weeks, but Joey Aguilar came in, and as a backup, he filled the shoes nicely. He was 11 for 13, 174 yards, and 4 touchdowns. First App State quarterback ever to throw 4 touchdowns in his first start.
Yeah, I agree, Lucas. What a game by Joey Aguilar to be able to step in under pressure when Ryan Berger got hurt in the first half. And another thing I wanted to point on, our second half, our defense really stepped up. They started bringing the pressure with guys like Michael Fletcher and Kevin Abrams-Verwain, who ended up forcing a fumble. Now was a big turning point in the game.
Yeah, about the big quarterback situation, because that is a huge elephant in the room in any of these conversations about this first game. I feel like Berger made the right plays for the most part, the safe plays, but I didn't see many flashes personally. And I will say he did get hurt. But Sean Clark did say in the press conference that at the time it was kind of a jammed finger. We weren't sure. And he made the decision because the offense needed a spark. So that's why he went with Aguilar. And I will say Aguilar stepped up. He had that next man up mentality. You can tell that he really, really focused on, hey, if my number's called on, I'm going to play as if I was planning to play all week. And I think he showed those flashes. He really punished the Gardner-Webb defense because when we saw Ryan Berger playing, they push up the box, push up the secondary, and finally we saw Joey Aguilar kind of step up on that end. So, Lucas, I want to swing it to you. What did you think about the defense in the game?
Yeah, I thought the defense was a little bit shaky in the first half. Big thing was Gardner-Webb was hitting a lot of design screens, and our cornerbacks were 5-10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That makes it a lot easier on those plays when you have the person who's supposed to make the tackle 10 yards away from the person with the ball. In the second half, we came up on the flats, had a little bit more pressure at the line of scrimmage, and that led to 3 straight turnovers on 3 straight drives. We were a different unit in the second half.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Lucas. Early on, we just seemed we were playing a bit too relaxed on defense, not really respecting the running Bulldogs enough, and that just allowed for him to swing it to the outside on every play. Quick screens, quick short passes, just beat us up all game. And we saw a great game by Jaden Brown, their running back, who was just able to completely run us over on the ground and through the air.
Yeah, you could tell that the Gardner-Webb offense was eating up the App State defense on the bubble screen, and the safety valve was always open for Gardner-Webb.
Yeah.
You could tell that App State was playing way too soft on the corner. It's disappointing to me that it took 4 minutes left in the third quarter to adjust to that then, but eventually they did adjust, and that's something big going into the future for this App State team, especially with a really, really big game coming up next week. Are there any adjustments you see, Ryan, that they need to make before UNC?
I think we just need to really bring more blitzes during UNC. We've got to make Drake May uncomfortable because they're not going to get away with having a slow start like we did against Gardner-Webb. If we have a slow start against UNC, it's going to be all over, and they're going to put 40 on us early in the first half.
Yeah, real quick, I would just find it surprising we didn't see any Imani Marshall in that game. Navy transfer McKeel Haywood was the one who got most of those touches. I think we see a little bit more Imani Marshall against UNC.
Yeah, I agree with that. I found it very interesting that we didn't see any touches for Imani Marshall, but I agree 100%. Sean Clark's kind of alluded this is going to be a similar game plan to the Texas A&M game where you really run the ball down their throats.
And Marshall
tire
is
out
a
the
huge
defense.
part of that game plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, guys, moving on from Saturday to Sundays, the NFL is set to kick off this weekend. What are your expectations and thoughts on the upcoming games?
Yeah, I'm looking at the New York Jets this year. They have Hard Knocks. They're the media's darling. But a team that added Aaron Rodgers is looking to return to the playoffs for the first time since 2010, longest active drought in the NFL. But boy, do they have a tough slate to start the year. I'm going to go over their first 6 weeks. Week 1, Buffalo comes to town. Week 2, at Dallas. Week 3, New England comes to town. And just to mention, they have lost 14 straight games to the Patriots. Week 4, Kansas City comes to town. Week 5, they go to Denver. And Week 6, Philly comes to town. They would be lucky to leave that slate 3-3.
Yeah, I think that's such a tough schedule. I think there's a very good chance they end up 2-4, 1-5, and everyone just starts panicking in New York. And you know how the Jets are. If they start really disappointing fans, it could get really hot really
The paper bags could come out from the, from the stands.
Yeah, it could be really tough. A game I'm looking at is the opposite side of that. The Packers play the Bears. I think the NFC North is wide open, and I think two of these teams, Jordan Love, Justin Fields has more people betting on him than anybody else in the league to win MVP. Jordan Love finally gets a shot. I think that's crazy. Two young quarterbacks, and then in this NFC North that's wide open, I'm excited to see that game this week.
Yeah, I also want to take a quick look at a team from the NFC North, and that's the Detroit Lions, who I think can make a big jump this year. Of course, week 1 they play the Chiefs. It might be a bit of a slow start, but I really like their draft this year, bringing in guys like Brian Branch, Shamir Gibbs, Jack Campbell. I think they might have overdrafted him a little bit, but I think he's a great talent. So I definitely think the Lions can step up big time this year in a weekend NFC North that really has no clear favorite right now, with A-Rod leaving to go to the East, as you said. So I think the Lions are going to step up big time this year.
Yeah, and I think the Lions have a better chance to win this Thursday now that Travis Kelce hyperextended his knee in practice today. He's likely going to miss that game. And a big question from the Chiefs this year, what is going on with that receiving core? It looks like Sky Moore is the number one guy there. Look, Patrick Mahomes is amazing, but there comes a certain point where a guy needs some wide receivers to throw to. I know the goal of that team is to win the Super Bowl. If they miss that goal, I think a big question is going to be, what do you do with this wide receiver core?
I agree, because Travis Kelce, let's start thinking long-term too. He's
34.
34 coming up this year.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like, that's a big, big deal. They're going to have to figure something out quick.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. You can't just keep putting off getting wide receivers like that. I mean, you're going to really rely on a big step up from either Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney this season, especially if Travis Kelce, as you said, isn't able to play week 1. It's going to have to be a big jump from somebody in that wide receiver room that we don't really know who it's going to be yet.
Yeah. Well, jumping to the NBA season will be starting next month. And after a wild offseason and the draft, what is your expectations and predictions for this upcoming season?
All right, I think there's so much parity, kind of like the NFL and the NBA this year as well. You have your really, really interesting teams. Something that I expect, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. I think the Suns are going to be a disappointment. I think they have a huge team, but I think once again, they're not going to have the depth that's needed to really push for a championship. Even though they have tons of superstar guys, it goes further than that in the NBA.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I have that on my list as well. Outside of Denver, the Phoenix Suns have the best title odds in the NBA. And obviously they have the stars, KD, Booker, Beal, Ayton, but it's about who's around that. And the only piece I feel confident about is Eric Gordon. He'll be a good spacer on that team, able to hit a lot of threes, but they're going to struggle on defense, and unless Ayton becomes a totally different player, they're going to struggle on the boards. I see them really struggling against some of the better teams in the West.
You know, I have to disagree with you guys. I think that this is the year that the Suns are going to take that next jump up to a championship level to be able to finally finish off getting a title. I think adding Bradley Beal just adds that next score after KD and Booker, just to take some weight off of them, so they won't have to just score 40, 50 a night to try to keep the team afloat. To take your point on DeAndre Ayton, I think he does make that jump where he's able to finally become more consistent defensively and on the boards to be able to make the Suns a good team.
Yeah. My question to that is, do they need that third scorer? When you have KD and Booker, this might be a hot take, but I kind of think Chris Paul might have been the better fit.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the skill sets of Booker and Beal, and there's a lot of overlap. They're both shooting guards that like to shoot the ball, and they're not known for being pass-first guys like Chris Paul was. So you look at a team with three guys, some of the best isolation scorers in the league, and they're not going to struggle to score points. But it is a little redundant, and like we talked about, they're missing players who could help on the defensive end, and at rebounding, do you really need another scorer like Bradley Beal?
Yeah. And then on the other end, I will say my take for the championship now, I'm going to go ahead and lock in the Boston Celtics. I think they finally get it done. I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are still probably, in my opinion, the best duo in the NBA. You have Brogdon, sixth man of the year. They ranked second in offensive and defensive rating last year. I think they're young, but they're adding that experience now in the playoffs. Lucas, you disagree?
I don't like the Kristaps signing at all. He's injury prone, and I think it's just not going to work out there. I like the fit better with Marcus Smart. I have Denver repeating.
You know, for me coming out the East, I got the Bucks going back to the finals. I think that Giannis is going to just show why he is the best player in the NBA this year and take his team back to the finals. And I like that they brought back Chris Middleton. He's taken a step back from being a perennial all-star, but I think bringing him back just keeps that chemistry with the team.
All right, you have our predictions. Don't go anywhere. After the break, we will hear from Nick, Judson, and Hunter about college football and impactful rookies for this NFL season.
Welcome back to the A Game. I'm Hunter Boston, joined alongside by Nick and Judson. Nick, college football had a pretty crazy first week. What are your thoughts on some of the games?
Absolutely. College football had a ton of things happen last week. Here are some of my takeaways from this past week of football, except for Colorado, which will be addressed later on this show. First of all, Florida State is back. Their performance against 5th-ranked LSU was impressive. They outscored the Tigers 31-7 in the second half on the way to a 45-24 victory. In particular, Michigan State transfer wide receiver Keon Coleman looked good. He had 9 catches for 122 yards and 3 touchdowns in his Seminole debut. Adding him to the same offense with quarterback Jordan Travis, with running back Trey Benson, and fellow wide receiver Johnny Wilson should be a lethal combination for the rest of the ACC, on top of Jared Verse leading and a strong defense for the Seminoles. If Florida State stays healthy, they should win the ACC. Besides Florida State, there was one other big moment in the ACC. First of all, I want to make this clear. Duke does deserve credit. They played great. Riley Leonard is a great quarterback that a lot of people don't know about. They have a strong defense. They're going to be a good team. With that being said, there may be some viewers here that are unaware of the term Clemsoning. It's the act of delivering an inexplicably bad performance. And some people forget that Clemson used to be known for that term before their 2010s dynasty. It came back in a huge way against Duke. Clemson had 12 more first downs. They had 48 more yards. They both threw and rushed for 200-plus yards. That stat correlated to 108 wins and 0 losses before the game Monday night. So you may wonder, how do they lose a game with those stats? They had 2 fumbles on drives that resulted in 1st and goal from the 1-yard line. They had 2 field goals that were blocked. They had mental errors, including a quarterback sliding 1 yard before the first down marker on 4th down feet first. That's how you lose games when you're playing against teams that you're a 12-point favorite against. People forget about Clemsoning, but it's back from the dead with a vengeance. Besides that, there were some hidden upsets that you may not have noticed if you looked at the preseason rankings. The Sun Belt was represented well by Texas State. The Bobcats went into Baylor and won 42-31 off of strong performances from Auburn transfer quarterback T.J. Finley and wide receiver Joey Hobart, who had an amazing 31-yard one-handed catch down the right sideline in that game. Wyoming, a future App State opponent, beat Texas Tech 35-33 at home after converting a 2-point conversion in double overtime. Northern Illinois went into Boston College and won 27-24 in overtime off of a walk-off touchdown, and Fresno State scored a game-winning touchdown with under a minute left in the game to beat Purdue at Purdue 39-35. So, Hunter, last year you made some predictions on impactful rookies for the NFL season. What do you think about this year's rookie class?
That's exactly right, Nick. With the NFL kicking off this week, I wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the rookies that I think will stand out this season. First off, with Jalen Carter. First off is Jalen Carter, defensive tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming from the University of Georgia, he totaled 83 tackles, 44 of them being solos, and 6 sacks. Carter was a huge part of the Dogs' run to back-to-back national championships. Coming into the draft, Carter was considered by many to be the best player available, but dropped in stock due to some of the off-the-field issues after the college football season. The Eagles snagged Carter, though, with the 9th pick in the draft, putting him immediately into one of the most stacked defensive line rooms in the NFL. Slated to start, Carter will be lined up with the same as Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, and Josh Sweat, which should allow him plenty of opportunities to rack up stacks. I think Carter will immediately make a difference for the Eagles team that has already had great success last season on defense. Next up is Atlanta Falcons running back Bijan Robinson. Coming out of Texas, Robinson tallied 1,580 yards rushing with 18 touchdowns and 258 carries, ranking him 6th overall in college football last season. He was picked up in the first round by the Atlanta Falcons with the 8th pick. Robinson goes on to a team that ranked 3rd in total rushing yards last year with 180 per game. With a head coach in Arthur Smith known for his run scheme, Atlanta's rushing attack will rival any team this season, with Robinson as the lead back flanked by Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson right behind him. In a division that is up for grabs, I see Atlanta leaning on Bijan and his ability to grind down teams into W's. Next, going back to defense, is Joey Porter Jr., cornerback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. coming off a great 2022 season with Penn State, where he picked up 27 tackles, 21 of them being solos, 11 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery. Porter joins the Steelers defense after getting picked up with the 32nd pick in the draft. He looks to slot into the Steeler defense with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Minka Fitzpatrick. Joey was made to be a Steeler. His dad, Joey Porter Sr., played for the Steelers for 8 seasons. His cousin played for the Steelers for 10 seasons. He went to high school in Pittsburgh and then college at Penn State, working perfectly with the Steelers culture that's always mimicked the feel of a college team. Porter is lined up to shine this year with his Steeler defense that consistently ranks high when fully healthy. They will need him big this year going against high-powered offenses like the Ravens, Bengals, and Seahawks. And last but not least, Jahmyr Gibbs, running back for the Detroit Lions. Gibbs said that if he could have had any superpower, it would be for super speed. But I tell you what, he's already got it. Running a 4.3 40-yard dash, Gibbs is an absolute weapon on the football field. Coming in from Alabama, where he picked up 929 yards rushing and 444 yards receiving, he was drafted 12th overall by Detroit. He looks to have an immediate impact on this Detroit Lions team with Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator. I look for all of these rookies to be very big for their teams this year in the NFL. Now, Judson, what were your thoughts on the Texas versus Alabama game, and how are the Texas Longhorns looking?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the Longhorns are looking good, but Alabama's looking a little bit better. And I can't wait to see this matchup this Saturday at 7 as the number 4 Crimson Tide take on the number 11 Texas Longhorns. Before we get into the detailed matchup, I'd like to look at the first game of the season for both teams. Starting out with the Crimson Tide steamrolling Middle Tennessee State 56-7. Sophomore quarterback Jalen Milroe looked great, going 13 for 18 with 194 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, as well as adding 48 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. This team, in no shocking fashion, continues to look great in all aspects of the game, with 431 total yards and forcing 2 turnovers last week. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from Alabama? They didn't take too many deep shots. Nick Saban relied on the running game mostly and used play action to open things up downfield later in the game. Perhaps their biggest bright spot is Kool-Aid McKinstry, not only one of the coolest names in college sports, but one of the best defensive backs as well. And he doesn't also... Cornerback isn't the only thing he plays. He returns punts as well with 90 return yards last week against Middle Tennessee. Moving on to Texas, Quinn Ewers is showing that he is the quarterback for Texas. 19 for 30, 260 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 on the ground, as they beat Rice 37-10. Returning receiver Xavier Worthy and tight end Jatavion Sanders look to have a comfortable connection with Ewers in the second year in the system. This team is a very pass-heavy offense, but will run the ball when they have to, with their sophomore duo of Jordan Brooks and Jalen Blue. The biggest takeaway of the Longhorns is they failed to convert in the first half versus Rice, as they had to settle for 3 field goals while in the Rice's red zone. Their biggest factor versus Alabama comes with Tavondre Sweat needing to serve as the interior presence for all 4 quarters if they want to stop this heavy run game of Alabama. Alabama, you look at 2 of their defensive backs who are on day-to-day injuries right now, with Malachi Moore and as well as Jalen Key. With that being said, these 2 powerhouses, it's going to be fun, but in the end, I think Nick Saban is fed up with being overshadowed by Georgia in the SEC, and I believe Alabama will make a statement win in Tuscaloosa Saturday night, beating the Longhorns by 10 or more points. Final score prediction, 30-17.
Thank you, Judson. Stay where you are. When we get back, we'll hear from Paula and Noah for our weekly sports recap.
Welcome back to the A-Game. I'm Noah Cornelius, that's Paul McKenna, and it's time to run down the mountain covering 10 of the biggest sports stories of the week. Without further ado, Paula, I'll toss it to you.
All rise for the judge, and by that I mean Aaron Judge. Over the last weekend, the Yankees captain became the fastest player in MLB history to reach 250 home runs. The Yankees had Aaron hitting fifth, and he smashed a ball into the left field stands. We of course saw Aaron and his huge smile as he rounded across the bases and celebrated with his teammates. This was the 30th home run for Aaron this season. Judge also reached that milestone considerably faster than the previous record holder, Ryan Howard. He did it in 2010 during his 855th game. Last year, I was hoping Aaron would break the record for most home runs in a single season, but he fell short. The Yankees have had a rough season, but Aaron Judge can still make contact with the ball. Noah, you're a new baseball fan, but what do you think about Aaron and his 250th home run?
Way to call me out, Paula. Well, I mean, just from the stats alone, this is a really great milestone in what is still considered to be a relatively young career. So I'm excited to see what he keeps doing. And speaking of excited to see what they keep doing, from the Redeem team to the Meme team, Team USA, led by NBA B-listers Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, and free throw merchant Austin Reeves, among others, suffered a shocking 110 to 104 defeat against Lithuania in the FIBA Basketball World Cup on Sunday. Lithuania got out to a 31-12 lead early in the game and led by 17 at the half. And despite a late resurgence from the red, white, and blue, Lithuania held on to win. The saving grace for Team USA is that they'll still advance to the quarterfinals despite the loss, and their next opponent was actually Italy today at the time of recording, and they won. With the way things are going, Team USA track star Noah Lyles may get the last lap because world champions are like an embarrassment seen around the world. Paula, do you know ball? What does this mean for Team USA's overall chances of winning it?
Honestly, I still think they can pull it off. I just want to say, Anthony Edwards is not a B-lister.
I said what I said.
He's not a B-lister. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. If there's anyone who could take it, who do you think it would be?
The FIBA championship overall? Not us, that's for sure.
Whatever. Anyway, UFC 293 is taking place on September 9th. This event is the second time Adesanya is putting his belt on the line. I'll be honest, I have Izzy in every fight, and this one is no different. The last style bender is facing off against Sean Strickland. Strickland is coming off of 2 wins, but he was not the first choice for this fight. I think Izzy is unstoppable, even though I did lose money on him. Well, I lost a bet. His height and his reach gives him an advantage that I think is unbeatable. Is he my favorite? No, but he is dominant. When he lost the belt last year, I couldn't believe it. I thought he had the whole fight, and he definitely has something to prove this weekend. If he loses the belt, I will never bet on him again.
Yeah, that's cap. But before I get into analyzing performances, I'd like to wish Ryan Berger a speedy recovery from injury because that's bigger than anything I say today. Earlier this week, App State football head coach Sean Clark announced that Berger would be out 3 to 4 weeks due to a finger injury he suffered near the end of the first half in the team's opening game versus Gardner-Webb. Now, shifting to Berger's performance before the injury, the true freshman struggled mightily in his first outing for the Mountaineers, completing 7 for 11 passes for 70 yards and a touchdown before leaving the game. But JUCO standout Joey Aguilar replaced Berger at the start of the second half and threw a touchdown on his first play for the Mountaineers. Paula, is it already time to give up on Ryan Berger?
You know, honestly, he is so young. I think it would be unfair to give up on him so soon. Did he have a great start? No, not at all. But I'm sure the nerves and the game and the crowd, it all had something to do with it. So should he get another chance? I think so. Everyone deserves a second chance, and especially him being so young. But what do you think, Noah?
I think so as well. I mean, it's a team effort at the end of the day, but we just keep on going forward, baby. Roll Nears.
Roll Nears. So we all know Messi came to Miami over the summer, but let's talk about why he and Neymar Jr. left PSG. Neymar and Messi played together in Barcelona and then they transferred to PSG, but neither of them found the team a fit. Both players were booed and just found the whole situation to be upsetting. This is not new information, but it is in headlines now because of the conversation around it. Another big name who left Europe is Ronaldo. All of the stars are getting more money, and I personally don't see an issue with it because all the older players are leaving, which is making space for the new athletes. But is the environment too toxic, and is it causing the big names to leave?
Yeah, you know, it kind of reminds me of Formula One, where everything in Europe is just more toxic by default. And then once Saudi Arabia and all of the other Middle Eastern countries participating were like, we could just pay these guys. They just got money. Once they realized they had money, you could just buy these dudes. They all started leaving. So toxicity, yes, but also a paycheck, bag of money in my hand right here.
Yeah?
Look, no more doubters, no more naysayers, and no more jokes because it is officially prime time in Boulder, Colorado. The Buffaloes shocked the college football world over the weekend, taking down number 17 ranked Texas Christian University on the road in a 45-42 high-scoring affair. Coach Deion Primetime Sanders' son, Shedeur Sanders, racked up 510 yards and 4 touchdowns, including a go-ahead 46-yard catch by freshman Dylan that ended up winning the game. Dylan Edwards, the freshman that is. Two-way star Travis Hunter also brought in 11 catches for 119 yards and an interception. He also played an incredible 120 snaps. Shedeur also spread the wealth by helping 4 receivers have 100-yard games for the first time ever. Can Colorado keep the momentum going and shock the college football world once again?
You know, I'm a fan of underdog stories, so I'm hoping they can. I'm not going to say too much more than that because I want the story to tell itself. But one team that did break a record this past week is Nebraska's women's volleyball team. They played in front of 92,000 spectators, making it the most attended women's sporting event. This happened because of innovation and rivalry. The Wisconsin Badgers stole the volleyball attendance record, so Nebraska said, hey, why not set up the court in a football stadium? We all know why Wisconsin broke the record, so it's nice to see people going to the arena to watch the game. Volleyball is becoming more popular, and it's great to see women getting the attention they deserve. This is leading to more sports thinking outside of the box. And just, Noah, what would you like to see?
Paula, why did more people go to that Wisconsin game? But why?
We're just gonna leave that up to. We're just gonna leave it.
It's in the script though.
No, we're just gonna leave it.
Okay, but in all seriousness, happy anniversary at the time of recording this to Jerry Rice. On this date, September 5th, the time of recording, in 1994, legendary NFL wide receiver Jerry Rice scored 2 touchdowns and ran for another in the 49ers' 44-14 rout of the Raiders, surpassing Jim Brown as the NFL's career touchdown leader with 127. Did I mention Jerry Rice would go on to surpass 200 touchdowns by the time he retired? Jerry Rice is 100% without a doubt the greatest wideout in NFL history, and it's not close. It's not close. Others have tried and failed to step up to his greatness. Megatron, Fitzgerald, Cooper Kupp, Randy Moss, and yet Rice's legacy endures. Young Justin Jefferson is looking to explode this season. But in general, Paula, do you think anyone will ever catch Jerry Rice?
No, hard no, not a chance, not at all, definitely not.
I like that answer.
Thank you. So Serena may not be headlining the US Open, but the numbers keep growing in terms of viewership. One thing about tennis is that the fans show up. With the popularity increasing, new talent is emerging. Some of the big names are starting to fall back, so the new players are really getting a chance to show what they've got. The US Open is celebrating 50 years of equal pay, and the upcoming stars think it's time for the rest of the league to catch up. There are many discussions about equal pay for equal play, and it needs to be reevaluated in their contracts. If someone is bringing in the numbers and playing more matches, but are getting paid less, then there's a problem. Noah, what is your take?
You're right. I mean, shoot, the only reason why I even knew about tennis in general growing up was because of Serena Williams and Venus Williams. I mean, shoot, these women deserve their money. Give it to them. That's all I'm gonna say. No politics, no nothing. Give the girls their money. That goes for the WNBA too. But for the last block, come on, did you really expect me to end with anything less? 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Larson broke a 17-race winless streak by winning at the iconic Darlington Raceway in South Carolina at Darlington Raceway. Known as a crown jewel race in the NASCAR world, the Hendrick Motorsports ace held off a hard-charging Tar Heel Blue Machine driven by 2311 Racing's Tyler Reddick in the closing laps. With this win, Larson not only secured his first ever victory at Darlington, but he also punched his ticket to the next round of the NASCAR playoffs. RFK Racing's Chris Buescher finished third, followed by Larson's teammate William Byron. Trackhouse Racing's Ross Chastain rounded out the top 5. Reddick's teammate, Bubba Wallace, finished 7th. Paula, will you be tuning into any of the races this season? Because you should.
Nope, and I knew you would say that because you are a die-hard fan of Bubba Wallace. But That'll finish us up for this week's episode. Thank you for joining us on the A Game.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram at the A Game Sports. And follow App TV on Instagram at AppTVInsta. Well, folks, that'll do it for us here. We'll catch you next week.